writes such good stories because I honestly believe that he experienced so much. Like, I think that we feel that on the page. And so I knew from a young age, I was like, I need to go experience these things, whether if I join the military or if I'm in law enforcement.
Guys, welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. If there's a bit of a shaky start, we're working with some technical difficulties, so bear with us. But this is going to be a very fun episode. We are fully swinging into the Western now, and I don't think there's a better time than the summer for Westerns. I don't know about these two fine gentlemen. We will get into it, but man, as soon as summer starts to roll around, that's when I'm getting out the Louis L'Amours. That's when I'm breaking out the Clint Eastwood movies. This is going to be a fun conversation because we're here with an absolute beast of a Western author and an absolute beast of a guy as well, which we'll get into. But I'll let Nathaniel introduce kind of the topic and guest for tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. And we've got a great episode planned today. We are right on the cusp of the Western Short Film Festival coming up. It's like 2 weeks away, I think, at time of this going live. Super exciting stuff, and we are in full swing with Westerns. Speaking of which, a Western released just this past week, I think a week ago from our recording day, by this man himself, T.G. Brown, an absolute stud. He is the 10th fittest law enforcement officer in the world, I believe, right? Absolutely insane stuff. We got the badass of badasses here. So I'm going to pass it over to him. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about that beautiful book sitting there, Cut Them Down.
Awesome. Thank you. That was quite the introduction, you guys. I don't know if I deserve it, but I appreciate it. Again, my name's C.G. Brown. I am a full-time police officer, currently serving as a detective. I'm a cop over in Oregon. And yeah, I'm also an author. So I wrote 2 crime thrillers that are loosely based on my own experiences. So those were the part of the War and Lost series, Tribal Honor and Jericho Burning. And then this is my 3rd book, Cut Them Down, a Western novel, which is actually in the same universe as my first 2 books. So kind of pulling a little Yellowstone thing where I'm going back in time and having the bloodlines kind of connect to my main characters and such like that. So I use a lot of what I've learned in my life. I am a defensive tactics instructor, so I teach various martial arts and kind of like your guys' favorite and one of my favorite, Louis L'Amour. He really loves boxing and stuff like that. I try to implement that into my scenes of my books. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah,
what an intro. What a background to have for writing too.
Seriously, too cool. And
I didn't want to cut you off, Nathaniel. It looked like you were going to say something.
No, you're good. Cut Them Down is #1 for action and adventure on Amazon right now, right? For new releases.
Yeah, for the Kindle, it's
Incredible.
the #1 new release. So pretty exciting stuff.
Congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm extremely blessed. It's as you guys know, it takes a village and a lot of good community members that have had my back from the beginning. Couldn't do without them, and I'm just so thankful. You guys know as much as anybody else out there that does this that it's a very lonely gig writing a book, and to have people that are so supportive like that and show up like that for the opening week was really hit right here in the heart. So yeah.
What a thing to see. I love seeing the top spot or some of the top spots filled by guys like yourself who are going out and doing their own thing, and we're not with a big publishing house or anything. Like you're taking this on your own hands with your own community, and you're building it off of your stories, which I just love to see the top spot filled by someone like yourself. So congratulations, well deserved, well earned first place spot for a Western too. So let's talk a bit about your relationship to Westerns. I'm curious as to what got you personally into them. I put up recently about Red Dead Redemption and crying like a baby, and then that was my intro. But what about you? What got you into the genre?
Yeah, no, there was a lot. There's a lot of Westerns that kind of got me into it. The one that sticks out in my mind is not the normal Western that sticks out in everyone's mind, but Open Range. When I was a little kid, I got to experience that one in theaters because I was old enough to experience it. My dad took me, my uncle, it was a whole family thing. I just remember watching that big shootout at the end of that movie
Yeah.
and just being like, these guys are awesome. Like I loved it. And then after that, my dad was like, Louis L'Amour books, then if you really like these movies, you should read these books. So then I got, of course, like a lot of people got into Louis L'Amour, started reading those books. And then, of course, Louis L'Amour led me to other Western authors, like George Gilman was another one. He wrote more of a gritty Western series, kind of like pulpy action stuff. And yeah, and so from there, just reading books and movies and even any TV show that came out that was a Western, my dad and I watch it. And then I also grew up reading about real life lawmen. That was
Mm.
really the main inspiration why I wanted to be in law enforcement was because I read
Yeah.
stories about Wyatt Earp, Bass Reeves, learning about how like Bass Reeves, he arrested like 300 and something people and he only had to like shoot maybe 10 of them. So like a majority of these people he brought in alive and it was very inspiring because back in those days, super hard to do because he's
Right.
bringing in people that are essentially going to fight to the end, right? And he was finding ways to do it the right way, and that was just super inspiring as a kid. I was like, I want to be like these men, these tough, inspiring guys. So yeah, that was my relation to the Western. And then I also really bonded with my father over the Western genre. Any like I said, any new movie, good or bad, we were like, hey, did you see the preview for
Yeah.
this? And he's like, yeah. And then we'd go and we'd watch it, and yeah, so that's been me in the Western. So
There's so much there that we could dive into, and we will. The first thing coming to my mind is, like you said, the father son thing. That's huge. That's the same thing for me. Like passing these, if not a son, it's a daughter. Nathaniel has daughters. Like being able to pass these stories on to like the next generation. I think it's such an honor and such a treat and such a gift for the child of you in that situation. Being able to build that relationship with them, with your father based on a genre like that. It's led to so many conversations and so many, I don't know, just deeper connections with me and my own dad. So I love that like, you can share that with your dad. Has he gotten to read Cut Them Down?
yeah, he did actually. This one's actually dedicated to him.
That's beautiful.
Because that's part of the reason it came out on Father's Day was that was the plan, is I
Yeah.
wanted it to be for him, and I wanted him to enjoy it. I actually wasn't always in the plan to do the Western right away. I was going to do more of my Warren Lawson series, but then I just, things happen in life. You realize how short life is,
Yeah.
and I was like, I wanted to do it now. Well, we're all in good health and we're all happy and we're all, you know what I mean? We can all enjoy
Right.
this together. And so, yeah, the Western came, did a lot of research for it. It was one of the hardest books. It is the hardest book I ever wrote. Just because I'm sure you figured this out. I mean, like even the dialogue is strange to
Yeah.
write. Like you have to
Yeah.
like, sayings that are sayings today weren't sayings then, and so just really going back and, even the combat is different, everything's just, it's a different culture. And so it was a task that I was proud to take on because, of course, it was in the mind that this is for my dad. I wanted to make him proud. And so I think when you do something like that, when you're writing a book, it just pushes you to make it as good as humanly possible. Not that I mean, every book should do that if you're writing a book, but this one had an extra push because, it's for my dad.
Right.
It's such a special thing to me and him. And now we have this forever. And so, yeah, and that was the journey we took. And my dad read it. He really loved it. He loved a lot of the themes that we hit on. Yeah, I think, I kind of made him smile because I think we've had so many conversations about real life Western characters, and then other fictional characters and what worked and what didn't work in these stories. And then he just was kind of like, you hit it right on the head. Like this was perfect because he likes like the authentic feeling of Westerns. Like
Yeah.
he likes to know what it would be like back then. What is it, because he grew up in the 70s and 80s where it was more of the spaghetti Western and
Hmm.
which we still love those too. But he kind of wanted to know what that was like for those people because he was really interested with how hard it was to live back then, and things like that. So I really wanted to make this feel as authentic as I could. And a lot of it was he kind of helped me along the way. I'd kind of send him a text like, "Hey, what do you think of this kind of clothing, or what do you think of this kind of weapon? What was," and things like that. And he's just like an encyclopedia for that stuff. And
Yeah.
so it was cool. It was a very collaborative a process with him. So
I
yeah,
love
very
that.
lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not. I mean, seriously, Father's Day. That was a brilliant idea because there's nothing like bonding over westerns with a loved one like that. That's especially like a dad father son relationship. Perfect. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
touch on that from a personal standpoint because I have a very similar story there. And you know what interests me about what you were saying is I've always, I'm not in law enforcement or anything, but I do find it interesting in westerns, kind of like the themes of law and order are kind of always baked in because it was
Mhm.
such a time period in history where it's like, all right, we're figuring out that line now of like we're putting in deputies and sheriffs and like we're making a system of law and marshals and Texas Rangers. So I've always found it very interesting to be like this period in time where we kind of were forging a lot of what law
Oh
would
yeah.
become. So it's interesting to hear that you talking about that. Can you touch more about, the Western genre and how it did influence you to become a police officer? And as you're reading them now, being a police officer and having all that kind of, even you're a detective now too, you said having that much experience, do you read them now in any different light or what's it like reading the Westerns these days?
Yeah, I guess reading them now, I still love them just as much as I
Yeah.
did back in the day. But yeah, I would say that with Westerns, and I don't know if a lot of people think like this, for me, there's a lot of things in the Westerns that still reflect on our world today. And I kind of feel like Westerns kind of had a downfall because that wasn't really connected to the modern world, and therefore people didn't feel connected to characters in these stories. And so when I like to read a Western, I like to read things that have subtle hints towards our world. For example, like mob mentality is such a big thing today. It's like
Hmm.
that was a big thing back then too. Things of that nature, like people think that they believe the truth is one thing and really it might not be the thing. We have people in the press might be putting out things that are not true. It's the same thing that's been happening for hundreds of years. And it was just like those things very always interest me because of how far we've come as civilization, obviously, from back then to now. And when a Western really connects with that, and not only that, like morals and things like that that we still possess today, and you can connect with a character that's living 200 years
Hmm.
ago or more. That's I think what Red Dead Redemption. You talked about, you mentioned that. It's like
Right.
that game hit all the marks. Like it had just enough modern flair feeling to it with the historical accuracy. Like I love those stories. Those really get like that will knock my socks off every time. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Have you
yeah.
read the Oxbow incident?
The Ox? No, I don't believe I have.
When
No.
you mentioned mob mentality and like what you were kind of speaking about there, I think you'd really like the Oxbow incident. It's a
Okay.
Western where the, it's like I don't know how much to say without spoiling it. So there's a
Yeah.
situation where somebody is accused of like a murder, and you see this town kind of forming that mob mentality around, and then it's exactly what you're touching on, like what is justice and truth, and like does
Hmm.
that even matter? And
Yeah.
I think you would really like that one, but it speaks to your point of westerns can be the shoot 'em ups and more
Hmm.
of like the pulpy kind of stuff. But that's definitely the stuff that I'm writing. It's more like the pulpy, just action and high adventure. But then
Hmm.
I think there are some really, especially like Louis L'Amour, Lonesome Gods and stuff. Like there are some
Hmm.
really literary forward westerns that will teach you a lot about today, even though they're speaking about the 1800s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a versatile genre that it doesn't get enough credit for its like flexibility, I guess.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I think what we all love about the Western is it could be anything. It could
Right.
be the action packed, or it could be, a coming of age story. I think one of the Westerns I really liked, have you read The Thicket? Have you heard of that one?
No, that's
Oh,
I'll have to put that
yeah.
on my
Yeah,
list.
that's a newer one, and it's more
Okay.
of a coming to age story where this kind of ragtag group has to go on a rescue mission. Like I said, I don't want to
Right.
ruin anything, but something happens at the beginning, and then now they have to go on this rescue mission, and like the group of people they have are just like from like really studly people to not so studly people to what I mean. It's just a really interesting group, and they have to like come together to do this thing. That's probably my favorite Western of all time, actually. But
Nice.
yeah. So, anyways, yeah,
Okay. Stick it. I'll have to read that one. That
yeah,
sounds cool.
yeah.
Uh, me and Nathaniel were saying like doing this much in the Western genre and like just looking at it so much and talking to Beau L'Amour, it broke our brains on what the genre is. It's like if you were asked point blank like, "Hey, define Western," I feel like I'm losing the ability to do that because it's so expansive. To your point, like it can be
Yeah.
anything and everything. And it's not necessarily time period accurate, right? I mean, this I don't have answers, so I want to get your take on this too.
Yeah.
Do you define the Western based on like a period of time, or since Yellowstone exists, that's still a Western and that's modern day. Like, how do you,
Yeah.
what do you define the Western as? Where does that even?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just, I mean, there's the neo-Western, right? I would say
Yeah.
that Yellowstone's more of like neo-Western for me. Like even that Logan movie was like a more
Hmm.
neo-Western. And then I always kind of, for me, the Western was always the Old West, like from the 1860s to the 1900s or
Hmm.
1910s around there. That's usually the time frame for me, personally. Um, like the end of the Wild West era, I always think of Wild Bunch. That movie, The Wild Bunch, is kind of an older movie back in the day, but I always think of like that was kind of the end of the Wild West
Uh-huh.
era, right? And then the 1860s, like post Civil War, was kind of the beginning of that era because then obviously civilization came. We changed. There were still people that had the Wild West mentality, but it was just in a different way, just like the Yellowstone, right? Like today,
Yeah.
obviously, we're not in the Wild West, but there's still cowboys out there, right?
Yeah.
So that, yeah, I guess like I always say there's like neo westerns and then westerns for me, I guess, but they're all the if they hit the same themes, I don't really care what time they're,
Right.
if the themes are what I come to see, then I'm all for it. Like put it in the future. It can be Star Wars
Yeah.
for all I care. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, keep it simple. If I see a cowboy hat
yeah,
and like six shooters, all right, that's sold. I'm a West. That's
yeah,
Western. I give. That's all I
yeah,
need.
yeah,
To
yeah.
scratch that itch.
I'm not gonna sit there and grade it and be like, oh, this is not the time.
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm entertained. I love it. Right on. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too fun. Such a great genre, and I'm. It's cool that you linked the two. Did you know that from the start? Like when you got cut them down's idea, did you know it's gonna link to your other books, or was it like, first draft, and then you're like, oh, let me actually do this? Like when did that come along for you? Where like, hey, this is gonna be same
Yeah.
same story.
So actually it was my wife's idea. Yeah, my wife and I
Nice.
run this, we do the book stuff together. She's very much into the marketing
Yeah.
thing. She's a 10, dude. Like
She's amazing at it because
yes,
number one
she's so,
spot. Let's
yeah,
go.
like without that's what I mean. It's like I write the books, but dude, without her, then nobody reads them. Like so thank goodness I have her. But yeah, no, she actually gave me the idea to connect it to the Warren Lawson books, and so as I was writing it in my first draft, I was kind of like, oh, I should have somebody like connected to the bloodline, but not be revealed till later on in the book. And so I worked that out in my head, and then I kind of figured that out as I went. I had the story for Cut Them Down, and I wanted it to stand on its own. I didn't want to. I don't want to be that author that kind of like relies on the prior book to be entertaining in the next book, if that makes sense. I want each book to stand on their own. So I was like, well, I don't want it to just be on the coattails of my Warren Lawson books. I just want it to be the Western. And so I didn't really start introducing the connections till later on in the Western. Well, and so when the idea came, I don't want to spoil it for those that haven't read it yet, but when the idea came, it was very flawless. And actually, it was a cool little Easter egg. If you read the Lawson books, you're like, oh, that's really cool. And then if you haven't, you're kind of just like, it doesn't change the story in any way. So yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Awesome. It'll be cool
yeah,
because you'll have a new batch of readers. I think that'll go. This will be their first entry point, and then they'll go to the other books and have the
yeah,
connection kind of in the reverse order. So it'd be very cool to see the readership kind of grow in the relationship with the stories evolve in
yeah.
a new way.
So my idea was I kind of want to connect the two merging storylines one day. I actually haven't announced this yet or anything, so I guess this will be the first time I do. But
Oh, exclusive information.
yeah, I mean, ooh, but yeah, no, I kind of want to have my Western characters merging with my modern day characters, and I have this crazy thought that maybe a couple like this is way, way, way down the road, and hopefully everything's successful. But I thought it would be really neat if I had a treasure hunt story. After doing like six or so, seven Warren Lawson books and maybe a trilogy in my Western series, and then you have like a dual timeline of my Western characters that are dealing with the same issue that my modern characters are, and
Yeah,
then that the Western characters are leaving like they end up leaving clues for the modern characters to
that's so
pick up.
sick.
And I thought that would be such a neat idea because you'd have all these stories, like kind of like an Avengers level
Hmm.
treasure hunting type of story is kind of what I thought, and also give me more time to research and do because I want to, I just talked about the researching aspect, and I want to make sure if I'm going to do the treasure hunting because that's another genre I love as well, that I want it to be authentic as well. And so I just thought, man, that would be really cool to have like these characters that are intertwined but not in the same time era. That way, it's like perfect combination of all the genres that I personally love. So, but yeah, anyways, that's kind of a very long term plan, and that's if
Right.
everything works out. It's kind of uh, a risk because you don't know if all your books are going to succeed, right? And maybe I have to pivot and do something else down the road. But that's the hope, anyways. My wife thinks it's crazy, but I'm gonna
I
try
think it's awesome. It
it.
sounds awesome. I mean, that's the kind of thing that
Yeah,
me and Nathaniel just absolutely eat up as like seeing these authors like yourself. Ryan Pote recently was talking about this, like people who have those visions of like, I want to make this bigger and better. Like I love that. I think Marvel definitely helped, but like that type of storytelling has unlocked kind of a new era for readers like myself to enjoy stories with a new level of interconnectivity that has
hmm
not been there before. Like we got it in Yellowstone too. Like going back to 1883 and 1923, like that was awesome, and I like those better than Yellowstone proper. And I just love a night like I think that is a whole new level of storytelling that you're doing something, you're talking about something that's completely an evolution on that, something even further, something even better. And it's like I love seeing the way that authors are picking up on that, like readers and people who are engaged in this type of stuff, they want big worlds, they want it to expand. It doesn't always have to be Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. Like we want to expand our men's adventure fiction universes, our
yeah,
treasure hunting universes, our westerns. So
yeah.
I really hope that that comes to fruition so I can read that, because that sounds exactly like the thing I want to read. You know what I mean? That's
Well,
perfect.
thank
Yeah,
you.
I think it's
Uh, As
like sorry, like you were saying, Yellowstone really kind of brought that to the forefront with having these stories that transcend time, um, of the same family and of like the same character's legacy. So to see you bringing that to the page is super exciting. I mean, it's so cool that what you said, a trilogy of Western books. That's super exciting because Cut Them Down is so fantastic that I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's so cool. I think the only time I've ever seen something like that before was Clive Cussler did it with Dirk Pitt and his 1910s character Isaac Bell, and it was like a chapter for
hmm
chapter, and they were kind of solving a case together. It was like a super cold case
that's pretty
that
cool.
Dirk Pitt was solving.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what you do with it because that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, no, like I said, I've crossed my fingers. It's one book at a time, but like I said, one way or another, I'm going to do a treasure hunt book because I want to do it. It's on my list of things that I want to write, and but that was kind of as I was writing them, I was like, well, I think sometimes it's easy to want to just write setup for the big treasure hunt thing, but like I really wanted to just focus on each book, one book at a time. That's kind of my mindset now, but this it's definitely in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, if I nail these characters, then there's just going to be so much investment in these characters, and then while when we get to that point, and also like my writing will isn't going to improve, continues to improve while I get to the pinnacle as well.
Right.
And because dual timelines, I've never written a dual timeline story, but that's a really hard thing to pull off. Like it can
I
really be a
imagine.
disaster. So I haven't tried it yet because I'm like, okay, I want to keep it in the pocket, do what I'm good at now, and really perfect that before I start moving on. Like I said, testing myself with the Western was my first step towards that. And so that's what we're hoping for. So we'll see. I'm glad that you guys are excited. It makes me excited to talk
Yeah,
about it with you guys.
it's
So
very cool. And that you're
yeah,
right. I mean, there's always that leveling up as an author, right? Like the first
yeah,
thing I ever wrote was basically one character in real time, and I did that basically three different times, like a real time thriller. Where I was like, all right, I don't know how to expand this to a lot of characters yet and make like interconnecting plots, so I'm gonna chill here for a bit. And
yeah.
then you do that, and you add more characters, and then to your point, like even a series character that you've done multiple books, like just keeping the chronology in line and like continuity, that's a game in and of itself. And then dual timelines, I'm sure that's a level above the rest. So
Yeah.
you know working your craft as a writer and not rushing these things and overextending yourself, definitely important, because we have a lot of writers, is why I'm like stopping on this caveat. But also
Yeah.
don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone too. Like I to your point earlier, westerns are kind of hard to write. I definitely was second guessing it as soon as I started, where I was like, oh, I don't know how they speak. I don't know the weapons. And like, I have to double
hmm
check, triple check everything. So it was pushing me out of my comfort zone, but it ultimately definitely helps you grow into the author you're, meant to be, and that, you can be. So
Yeah.
for
No,
everybody.
I totally agree with that. I think for me, my background in law enforcement, writing crime thrillers about a cop who solves crime, it was pretty, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but I felt like I was definitely cheating in the research department, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like I know how the procedurals work. I've done it so many times now in my life that I'm like, okay, I just create a plot around it, write some dialogue between characters, and I can really pump those out. And it's like, I could have just kept doing that, and there would have been nothing wrong with that for sure. But I was kind of like, man, I bet you I could even get even better at those if I test myself writing a Western. And so, same as you, when I started this Western, I was overwhelmed. I honestly was like, my editors were ripping it apart because they're like, you need to make this, you need to make these changes, these changes. I'm like, man, I really thought I was dialing it in, but ultimately it just forged what it became. And I'm thankful for that. I always I listen to my editors all the time because I know they're coming from a mutual stance, and they really help me keep it as like historically accurate as possible. And yeah, so and that was the challenge too. I was like, okay, and then like the cultures are much different than today. How people deal with issues back then is different. The corruption levels were different. There's so many just nuances that as I'm writing this story, I'm like, oh, there's some similarities to law enforcement today, but there's a lot of nuances. And so it just like I said, it's like working a muscle. Like and when you're working out, it's like if you work that muscle enough, you're just going to get stronger. And so that's why I kept telling myself, was like, just keep going. Like, this is for dad. Like, get this.
Yeah.
You can do this, And yeah, it was a great experience.
Heck yeah. Paid off too. I
Yeah.
mean, writing a good western is not easy, as I don't even know if mine's going to be good, right? I don't I can tell you it's difficult to do, though, just from the practice of writing the words down. And to your point, it's all so askew to what we know and what's common now. Like Nathaniel caught me several times being like, yeah, they wouldn't have said that, or like that word or phrase didn't exist. To your point, I think you mentioned that, like different phrases that we think are
Yeah.
pretty common and have been around for a while. After I do some research, like, oh, they didn't come into like the 70s. What? I thought that thing was around
Yeah.
forever. So,
Yeah.
I think
what is your writing process? Oh, go ahead, Nathaniel.
it's a great time to be a Western fan because you got Cut Them Down
Yeah,
Now, and then you're going to have the Western Short Story Roundup, and you're going to have Gun Law, Bloodlands coming out, all like right on the heels of each other, and it is fantastic stuff. I mean, it's super exciting, and it's cool to see you guys
Yeah.
honoring this legacy. I mean, men's adventure fiction and pulp was kind of built on the Western. Like Beau L'Amour was talking about it in the last episode or the episode before, where the Western was literally like they were writing it. It's like the same thing as you writing your police stories now. Like that's what they were doing in the
Mhm.
1880s. They were literally like, okay, yeah, Billy the Kid killed a bunch of people. Let's make a sensational story out of this. So to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
bring it back to the roots is so exciting and it's so cool. And I've read both of these books, and you guys are just in for a treat. I mean, this is what I think. Don't get me wrong. I love the old Western stuff. I love like classic Westerns, but the advent of modern cinema and the abilities to do like bigger action, better action with movies has really increased the ability that we can tell action in stories. And you guys just went pedal to the metal, floored it with the action for both of these stories. So you guys are in for treats. If you love action, you love adventure. These are phenomenal. I've got a question I want to ask, but let's circle back to Luke's question about the writing process, and then we'll jump into my thought too.
yeah. So I'm curious because we do have a lot of writers that listen too. What are your pieces of writing advice you give to people when they're like, hey, well, how do I do this? How do I get better? And two, are you research first and outline, or do you just go for it and kind of like piece together as you're going?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So my process, I think I heard it on one of your guys' podcasts. I don't know if it's Ryan Poe, but he talks about like getting breaks from things. I think there was a point where he's talking about like a workout plan and things like that. That's very crucial for me as well. I'm totally ADHD, dude. So like if I do something for too long, I can't focus anymore. So my writing process is usually like, okay, I sit down, I write for a couple hours, and then once I feel that kind of fuse kind of like starting to fizzle out, I'll take a break, go work out, or go to work, whatever it might be, and then like get that break, and then maybe come back to it later at night. When I hit like writing blocks, I typically, again, it's like just trying to find a break or just trying to find a way to get through it. I've had like I try to let things just come naturally. I don't want to force things when I'm writing. So with any like idea that comes, like sometimes I'll write a scene and then get an idea for that scene, and I'll just write down that idea to keep it fresh in my mind because I'm like, okay, I might need that later, so I store it away. And then as far as outlining books, I did it with this book with Cut Them Now. Definitely could not do this one by the seat of my pants because it's just too much to try to just wing it. With Tribal Honor, I honestly like wing it's not a great term for writing, but I mean that's what I did.
Right.
I straight up sat down with Tribal Honor and I'm like, I'm writing this from the heart, and it was like a case that I really dealt with, and it was I just knew it was going to be an emotional, like, hard hitting action story that I was going to tell. And so I just let the pieces fall as I wrote the story, like I was experiencing it in real life. And then of course went through a lot of edits. And then I tried to do that with my second book, and it did not work out at all. I was like, where am I at? I was 50 pages into it, and I was like, I was like, this is terrible. I gotta fix this. So then I got into outlining. So now I outline everything from the beginning, unless something, like I said, if I let it come to me and I'm just like, just write it out, just start writing the story. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's spiritual. I'm not a spiritual guy per se, but sometimes I just try to like have that like yoga-esque feel to my
Yeah.
writing. Yeah. The ebbs and flows. I feel like with working out, I'm very like, uh, heavy testosterone pushing, and then like,
Yeah.
it's like, I want that, the yin to the yang sort of thing. And so, that's kind of how I approach my writing. So it's very, flowy, let it come. Like what's that Bruce Lee saying? Like water.
Yeah.
I try to emulate that. I'm not saying I'm always like that because I'm not, but that's what I try the most. So hopefully that makes sense. But
Heck yeah. And I don't know who
yeah,
said the quote, but there's the one about like every book will teach you how it wants to be written. I find that to be super true. Like one
yeah,
book
yeah,
you can wing it, like you said, it's from the heart. You're like, oh, this is perfect. I'm crushing it. I know what I'm doing. Try that same approach for the next one, falling apart. You're like, what's happening?
yeah,
So yeah, each book definitely presents itself differently. You got to be open, got to be the water like Bruce Lee, and got to go with the flow.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Nathaniel, my
Yeah,
friend, what was what you wanted to circle to?
I agree wholeheartedly about the writing stuff for sure. I mean, there's times when it's like sometimes I write to figure out what the story is going to be. Other times I write and I'm like, okay, the story's dead, but it's not. Like I know there's more. I got to figure out what it is. So very cool to see the process between both you guys. My question is, uh, why? And this can go for both of you. You can pick who goes first. Why do you guys think it's important that the Western makes a comeback, and why do you think it already has kind of started making a comeback in today's day and age?
TG,
Hmm.
you're the guest of honor, so I can let you go first unless you want some
Yeah.
time to think.
No, I'm good. So why is the Western important? I think that the Westerns teach us a lot of values that are maybe not as um, prominent in today's world. I think that I don't want to say that it's, like that everywhere, but I would say that definitely bad behavior has been reported, and like unlike any other time in our history. So I think that it teaches values. For me, the Western taught me, good things of how to be a man, how to treat a lady properly, how to do all these things like that last podcast, Beau L'Amour was talking about how people sent letters about how they learned how to be a man from Louis L'Amour books. It's like, dude, that's real. And so to me, that's why it's super important. It's like, not only that, it's like you also, in some Louis L'Amour books and other Westerns, like you learn what a proper lady acts like sometimes, you know what I mean? And things like that too. So it's not only just on the men's coin, it's also on the other coin too. And so, yeah, I think that Westerns are important in that way. And then I think as far as today's age of writing these Westerns now it's about building from that and making it our own, I guess. And then so trying to like build on those values and make it our own thing. So we're not copying what was done before, but we're just improving upon the groundwork. And so that's kind of that was my mission going into this, was like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but how do I bring something new and fresh to the genre and still implement these themes that are so important to the Western genre and myself. So yeah, I think that answers the question, but yeah,
That's a really good answer.
yeah,
I think
Well said.
part of my answer is going to come directly from that. Where like, it's like westerns to me feel like what a lot of people's like grandfathers are. You know what I mean? Like how you go to your grandfather's house and he's gonna teach you those lessons. He's gonna give
hmm
you a little bit of insight on life and what it used to be. Like that's what it has done a lot for me. It feels like I'm sitting down with like my grandfather every time I read one of these, and you're just hearing about to your point, TG, like the values that are kind of cooked into our culture, and who men are supposed to be, who women are supposed to be, how the nuclear family is supposed to kind of function. And there's a lot of that. And I think too, for the Western, like the spirit of like the cowboy and the frontiersman, and it just like, especially in this day and age, I think it's really drawing a lot of guys in. Um, because I can speak for myself, like we don't have that same type of adventure or like uh, kind of, yeah, just adventure to go off and live. And so these stories kind of remind us of the cowboy within, or like the outlaw within. Like there's something that gets alive in me to want to get closer to that more primal man, as I sometimes refer to it as, that you'll see in these, like a survivalist. He can hunt and live off the land, and fish and provide for himself, provide for his family.
Yeah.
I think that naturalistic living, we see it shrinking around all of us. We see ourselves surrounded by four walls, and we see ourselves staring at screens all the time. So it's like wanting to go and experience and be with a time and a place and with people who didn't need any of that, and kind of like lived a very different life, I think is very alluring, while you're getting the added benefit of kind of getting in touch with all the values that America was kind of founded on and believes in. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it a win-win for this day and age, and the Western kind of is so important for those factors. What about you, Nathaniel? What's your take on why the Western is important, and why today it's kind of having its another day in the sun?
Yeah, that's a super like thought provoking whole idea. It's so cool to, I think, like to see the legacy of storytelling. And there's always been kind of these adventure stories from like the dawn of time, and to kind of like track back to where the cowboy originated. I mean, the traits of cowboys started years and years before, right? Like I'm reading this book called the White Company, I believe, by Arthur Conan Doyle, which oddly enough is a suggestion from Louis L'Amour in his book Educational Wandering Man. He talked about reading that book during his wandering years, and it's really good. And the whole point of the story is this young kid is a clerk for like the religious organization in England, and he ends up getting out of there, and he has to go wander for a year because his father wrote it into um, his like will to do that. So he's here wandering the land trying to figure this out, and he runs into these like swashbucklers, these adventurers, and they're bowmen. And bowmen, I feel like, were kind of the original gunslingers. We talked about this before. Like Robin Hood is the original gunslinger in my mind. And so you kind of have this whole like attribute. It's almost like a Western. Like he's like, okay, well, I've got to do the right thing, but what is the right thing? Like, how do I stick to my values in this way? What do I do? How do I kind of like work this out? So it's almost like that was just put on perfect display in the American West, right? Like you're here on the very edge of civilization. You're as far out as you can be. And it is just the strength of your will, the strength of your decision making, and there are no morals, right? Like people, you can do whatever you want, and theoretically there is no law to stop you. And so that's kind of where you get this like boiled down to like, okay, there's good and there's evil. There has to be good and evil, and I have to choose to be good. Otherwise, the world's going to fall apart and crumble around me. So I think it's like, and it's like, I mean, Beau L'Amour said that it's man fighting against the frontier and civilization, and kind of like the go between of that. But I think it's really just like you get to a certain point where you have this like underlying anarchy. And people talk about it all the time these days with like, oh, we should just go back to an anarchist state. Everybody can just fight for their lives. It's like that does not sound like a good idea. No one's gonna have fun doing that. But it's like to see that played out in the actual Old West is so intense. You know, like you literally, in your book, Cut Them Down, definitely deals with this. Like there's the power, and then there's good, and they come clashing together. And sometimes the good is powerful, sometimes the bad is powerful. But it takes one man to stand up against the evil and try and face it down. And I think that that's kind of like the backbone of the Western. I think that that's part of the reason why it's so important today, is because there is no good and evil anymore. It's also like, oh, whatever you want to believe is true. And I think that people are starving for absolute truth, absolute good versus absolute evil. They want things to be black and white, and they want to kind of have that. And to Luke's point, it really does harken back to your grandfather. It harkens back to like the old days where everything seemed a lot more cut and dry, and there was kind of like a realness to the world instead of whatever we got going on today. I think that that's part of why it's coming back. People are like, yeah, bring back the old days, bring back the old West. Let's see good conquer evil.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
why men's adventure fiction as a whole seems to be having a renaissance. People love
Yeah,
idealism and optimism coming back to their storytelling, because for a while there, it's all anti-heroes, all pretty nihilistic stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, also the westerns that tell that are thought provoking as well as entertaining as well. Those have always been my favorite. That stuck, like I said, The Thicket that I told you about, that book. It wasn't only entertaining; it was also funny, but it was also thought provoking because you're writing with this narrator who's just learning about how to be a man through this intense time. And those things, when I sit down a book and I'm like just sitting there thinking about it for, however long afterwards, like those are the books that get me. And so for me, in my books, I always hope that, like, not only are they entertaining, I hope that they provoke some deep thought. Like I hope that, like, you have the mixture of, like, the yin and the yang, I guess, again, is like, yeah, you have the badass action sequences, that entertain, but you also have that, like, deep thought of man, and things like that. I like characters coming together too. I think the Western is very good at portraying a group of characters that are coming together to face a threat, because they were the only thing that was there, in a lot of circumstances,
yeah,
like Nathaniel was saying, it's like, yeah, it was like, they're the edge of, society. There's no society in some of these circumstances, and they have to band together, men, women, children, it didn't matter. And those stories, I like to read and watch those, because it's like, I sit there personally and I'm like, man, would I have been able to do that as a kid? Would I, you know what I mean? It makes
Yeah,
me want to be
yeah,
better.
yeah,
I sit there and I'm like, I want to be a better man because of those. And so, yeah, I think that's ultimately why the Western's so attractive to me personally, is I'm like, I love that, like these men protecting their families, or even a mom protecting their families on the frontier. Those
right.
stories are super interesting to me too, because it's like, dude, these women were freaking tough. Like, you know what I mean? They were tough women that had to stand up and hold off, whatever's coming from them, if their husband was gone, or maybe they were a single mom, and so, yeah, all these stories coming together about the West is super. I don't know. That's why I love it so much too. And you guys just nailed it on the head with your guys' descriptions of it.
Did a great point about the women on the frontier.
Yeah.
I've been watching like the English. I think it's called the English. There's that
Oh yeah.
one. There's what was Horizon, and then what was the one with the guy from Terminal List? It was like the Western that came out earlier. American Primeval. All
Oh
three
yeah,
of
yeah,
all
yeah.
three showed like the scenario where like the woman has to kind of protect the kid or protect themselves in a situation where they get raided, and there's it yeah, it's gut wrenching to watch, to think
Hmm.
about, what if that was your mom or your wife. Like there's something about the Western that is so like it hits, like it makes it harder to breathe, like it's anxiety provoking. For me, it's a little
Hmm.
bit similar to the post-apocalypse stuff.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
You read it and you're like, this is horrifying because it's just nothing but honest. Like it's nothing but history. Like this is the reality of humans, and how do we reconcile with that? Um, how do we become that? To your point, like, am I prepared? Am I ready for the possibility of that, or would I have been able to survive in that? Like these types of universal anxieties or fears, I think, also help the genre's staying power, and that's why the post-apocalyptic kind of genre, I think, also probably was birthed from the Western in a lot of ways, where it's just when it comes down to uh, those types of scenarios where it's you against lawlessness, or like drawing the line in the sand, like that is it's a scary predicament, and there's a lot of stories that have stuck with me in the genre from just pure nightmare fuel, you know what I mean? Like
Oh
scenarios where you're like,
yeah.
oh man, I don't like that.
Yeah, but like I also think that, like, I'm totally with you. Like some of it is anxiety, like American Primeval. Like if
Hmm.
for those that haven't seen it, that show is intense, like that. But at the same time, when shows are that intense and they overcome the
Hmm.
traumatic things that they go, it's almost more inspiring in ways, because I don't know if it feels more earned or how that is, but for me, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just my history of being in law enforcement and just seeing it firsthand a lot. Like, I appreciate those stories more now than ever, because I'm like, yeah, that's real, and that makes me more inspired. By seeing these characters that deal with struggles every day and seeing it like up close and personal, like even if it is kind of like shocking, I don't enjoy it in the moment, but then like the payoff is always like, wow, wow, they got through that. Like, and then it makes you think, okay, I can get through this. I can, whatever's going on in your life. And that's something truly special about the Western genre. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
I love that when they come out on the other end. If it's someone
yeah.
like Cormac, and I'm getting a
Oh
nihilistic right now,
God.
ruins my life.
Oh, Blood Meridian ruined me, man.
Yeah,
Ruined me.
Blood Meridian
Yeah.
is like the anti-Western for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's you go through it with your hero, and by the end, you're just, oh, please
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah. God, that was the horror. I have nightmares about the judge.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, he's just naked bod running around the the
Yeah.
wilderness making bombs. Wow, what a guy.
Yeah. Hairless.
Truly
So you
horrifying
mentioned
stuff.
it really is. I don't want any parts of that. You
Yeah.
mentioned 310 to Yuma being one of your favorites. This might have been before
Oh
we
yeah.
recorded, but
Yeah.
is this the Russell Crowe and Christian Bale remake, or is this the original?
Probably the remake. Yeah, I've
Okay.
watched both of them, but the remake I really liked Russell Crowe's portrayal
Yeah.
in that book. And honestly, Ben Foster brings kind of a nuance to it a little more than the original had. I honestly, Ben Foster is a menace in that movie, and
That guy's
so
a
like,
great actor, dude. I love
yeah,
everything
he's a
that guy
great
does.
actor. Yeah, so I'd have to go with the new one for me, which is
Nice.
rare. Usually the original is the better one, but I really thought Christian Bale did well. His son, I forget his son's name in that movie, like Logan something, but he was really good in it too. And then obviously you can't get like the new like the early 2000s had great Western
Yeah.
action scenes, like Open Range. We talked about that one, and then like 310 to Yuma, like those, like the sound design and the like, when they're having these gunfights, there's like no music, it's just the explosion of
Right.
these thundering cannon shots, and you're like, yes, I'm there, I'm in it, and I think I really loved how they did that in those two movies.
Dude, Open Range, for people who haven't seen it, I think the end shootout in that is probably my favorite shootout in possibly any movie ever, but definitely in westerns. Because not only just in watching it as a viewer, like, wow, this is so good and this is so entertaining and the payoff is so good, because that's not like a wall to wall action film. There's a lot of, to your point, a lot of thought provoking stuff in there. There's a lot of kind of drama elements that really bring you into the world, bring you into the characters, so that by the time the action hits, some of those payoffs and some of the stakes are risen so high. It's like, man, this is amazing to watch go down. But also from just like I think they call it blocking in filmmaking. Like, it's one of the most easily understood shootouts, which is not easy to do. There's a lot of times where it's just boom, boom, shooting, shooting, really confusing. But if
Hmm.
anybody is trying to like make one of these Western short films, either for this one or for next time we do this, watch the shootout in that. It is impressively put together. I think it's one of my favorite things in filmmaking. That and the Wind River shootout where the guy's on top of
Oh
the whole
yeah.
thing. So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you
Wind
seen
River's
Too
a
cool.
classic.
Wind River is classic. Nathaniel, have you
Yeah.
seen Open Range? I forget if we've
I am not, but
covered
I
that.
think like maybe episode 5 of
Yeah.
the podcast, you were like, watch the last shootout and you'll
Yeah.
love it because it's amazing. So it's definitely on my list. I'm just the slacker of all slackers when it comes to watching stuff. Um,
I
I
still haven't seen Rio Bravo, so I can also not say anything myself.
There you go. We're missing out some big Western classics.
Yeah,
uh,
we are.
yeah. Do you? So we've talked about Taylor Sheridan multiple times. Do you, TG, have a specific favorite from him, either a movie or show or anything like that? What are your thoughts on him, kind of overall?
Yeah, no, I really love Taylor Sheridan. He's a huge inspiration to a lot of my writing. I think yeah, I always, I think, I mean, he just mentioned it. Wind River's definitely one of my favorite movies. I don't believe he directed Hell or High Water, but I believe he wrote that he was a writer on that, and
Yeah.
it definitely comes
Great one.
through in that story. Hell or High Water was like one of my favorite movies too. So I think they came out back to back because I went and saw them in theaters both times, and I was like, after those two movies for me, I was like, I'm watching everything that this guy puts out. I don't care if it's a medical drama, I'm watching it because I was just that I loved it that much. So yeah, I'd say those two movies, Hell or High Water, and then Wind River when he came out. Those two, I was sold. So
Yeah.
That's my thoughts exactly. My two favorites are those two, I believe. Definitely Hell or High Water is above it for me because of kind of the Cormac thing we talked about earlier. Wind River is
yeah,
a slight too hard to watch for me. At certain
yeah,
points, I'm like, this is a hard to watch. Important watch for sure. Important watch,
hmm
but I love Ben Foster in Hell or High Water. It's just too.
hmm
He's got that outlaw spirit. The part where he's in the casino
yeah,
and there's that Comanche, and they're like, you know what that means? Enemy for life, and they're staring each other down. I'm like, this is perfect modern Western stuff right
yeah,
here. This is
uh,
epic.
Yeah.
yes, love that scene.
Yeah.
What about you,
I
Nathaniel? What are your top
Yeah.
picks for Taylor Sheridan?
That's a tough one, man. They're all so good. I mean, Hell or High Water is phenomenal. I love Chris Pine. We've talked about him before. He's one of my favorite actors who's just not been in a lot of roles. Like he hasn't been in nearly enough stuff like this, and I would love to see him play more roles like that, play a cowboy because he did such a good job. But I think, and I was thinking about this today. I love 1923 so much, but when I think back to the second season, I just kind of feel like traumatized almost. Like that season was just so like all over the place. Like the stuff that happened was so cool when it was cool, and then it was just so like dark and not cool when it wasn't, you know? So I have much fonder memories of season one, but I think I
hmm
like the action that happened in season two better. But man, I for me, Taylor Sheridan is a prime example. Like I think he's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a really great author. But I feel like and Luke and I have talked about this before. I feel like he has a hard time kind of choosing which lane he wants to be in. Like he's like, all right, I'm going to make this ultra real and ultra gritty and ultra dark. And then the other times he's like, I'm going to make this like the most fun, exciting thing you've ever seen, and you're going to have the time of your life. And then he like marries those two in the same episode of the same TV show, and you're like, "Whoa, what is that?" I'm getting like vertigo right now. What is going
Yeah.
on? Which, I mean, and that's why, and this might be the key. That might be what he's trying to do is make you feel exactly that way because that's how life is, you know. So very, very nuanced writer and a great filmmaker, great director. He's an awesome dude.
So hopefully you guys don't mind me switching gears. If you do, you could just tell me to shut up and go back to Western talk. But I do want to, while we have TG on, someone who's tenth most fit law enforcement officer. I mean, we can't not talk about fitness. I feel like because
We got to talk
Nathaniel,
about it.
you and I both love fitness. TG, you obviously king of fitness right here. So, and also to like the people watching, a lot of us are writers who watch this. We're doing a lot of sitting, a lot of not working out. You should definitely be taking care of your body. So, what brought you into fitness? Let's start there. Like for me, Rambo, it was still films, men's adventure fiction. What was your kind of initiation into fitness and wanting to take that up?
Yeah, it was probably, I don't remember the exact movie. It's probably just a culmination of movies and
Yeah.
watching just action hero. And then I started with bodybuilding at first, and that was kind of what just to try to like look good, be fit after I got out of high school. And then CrossFit was starting to be a bigger thing. I was pretty competitive. There was three things I wanted to do with my life, and so I wanted to be a pro athlete at some point. I wanted to be a cop, and I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do all three. Um, and so um, I knew the writer thing was going to have to come later, and a lot of the reasons because again, Louis L'Amour was not like he writes such good stories because I honestly believe that he experienced so much. Like I think that we feel that on the page, and so I knew from a young age I was like I need to go experience these things, whether if I join the military or if I'm in law enforcement, because I didn't know if I'd get hired as a cop or not. But so I started off applying when I turned 21. I started applying to be a police officer. Was really starting to get into CrossFit around that time, and then I got hired. I got turned down by a lot of police agencies. Finally, got one to take me, and then once I got hired, I got into martial arts a lot more. I wanted to. I realized how dangerous it was pretty quick. I was like into
Yeah.
this job. I was right, in training pretty quick, and you see how quick things happen, and you're like, wow, I need to be better. Like being fit is not enough. So while I'm doing CrossFit, I started getting into MMA and doing Muay Thai, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so all these things kind of just started culminating. And then I want to say 3 or 4 years of CrossFit, I decided I'm going to start competing. Again, just trying to test myself to the limit. I think that's always been my thing, for better or worse. I've always wanted to just push myself to the absolute max, whether it's mentally or physically. And it's probably not the most healthy. My wife, who's also a counselor, tells me it's not healthy sometimes. And thankfully, I got her to keep me sane. But it was always something I wanted to test my limits. I was like, I always believe that your body is an incredible machine if you let it be, if you treat it the right way, if you do these things the right way. And I would just see people doing it, and I'd be like, I can do that. I'm going to do it. And so I'm very hard headed that way. And so then I went to my first CrossFit competition. I ended up winning it, and so I got like a cash prize back then. And so I was like, hey, I might be pretty good at this. So,
Yeah.
so then I started taking it more serious. Like my nutrition was there, and then again, still doing martial arts because I'm still doing police officer stuff. And then I want to say year 5 or 6 of being a cop, I became a defensive tactics instructor. My PD was like, hey, do you want to teach other cops how to do this, like what you're doing? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like I want cops to be safe. I want people to be safe in general. So, so they sent me to this instructor school, which was like a week of just like combat, like just hand to hand combat stuff. And
Yeah.
so
Too
like
sick.
knife defense, yeah, like gun, weapon retentions, all these things. So you just learn it is in it, drill it for a week. Then you have a test at the end. You have to pass that to be an instructor.
Yeah.
And so then I came back with that. And yeah, then I started teaching other cops a lot of various martial arts. The martial arts I teach is more real world stuff. You know, there's some things that are not, as you probably know, Luke, it's like boxing is practical in the real world in some circumstances, but others not. You know, like you don't point box in real life, like you
Yeah.
don't
No
want to.
way.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But like in a boxing ring, that works because you're trying to win the match, right? So just learning how to combine these things together. And then yeah, and then from then on it was just kind of a dedication to my craft. I was just continually doing these three things: defensive tactics, instructing, police officer work, and then being a CrossFit athlete. And then I think it wasn't until about COVID time that I was like, I think I might have some material in my head now. And so
Yeah.
you know, I experienced enough cases. I had a mentality at work that I would not quit until I finished a case. That was just kind of what I did. I didn't like leaving things not finished, which in law enforcement happens a lot. But when I
Mm.
was younger in my career, I was definitely like, nope, I'm going to work 16 hours, 18 hours, however long it took.
Yeah.
I was also single and no family at home, so I was just kind of like, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm gonna go out and see this. And so yeah, I had some close calls when I was working younger in my career. Where I work is a very rural area,
Hmm.
so like your nearest cover officer is probably 30 minutes to 45 minutes away
Mm.
sometimes. So you would get in circumstances where, you know, somebody has a warrant for their arrest and they don't want to go with you, and that could escalate. And so um so yeah, no, there was definitely some things that opened my eyes, and all these things culminated into my writing. And then I started writing stories. I didn't want to write real life stories because I didn't want it to be a biography. I always wanted to write fiction. I was like, I
Yeah.
want to write kind of like how Jack Carr did his Jack Reese series, because he's a Navy SEAL. His character's a Navy SEAL, but he's doing different things than
Right.
Jack Carr did in real life. But it feels like real, you know, and
Yeah.
how he writes them. I wanted to
Hmm.
do that with the police world. And so that's why I did. It also protected my victims for those cases. I didn't want my victims out there. Like I didn't want their stories out there. It's to me, it's their story, not mine to tell. So I was like, I'm going to just create fictional stories using like tidbits of real things that I experience and mesh them into a fictional storyline, to ultimately get the point across of what I wanted. So yeah, sorry, that was a really long-winded answer there,
It's
but
perfect.
yeah. So and then yeah, the 10th fittest law enforcement thing that came last year, because they had a couple competitions where it was the fittest law enforcement officers in the world, and you compete in this kind of um, like tournament type thing where they give you a workout and then you move to the next phase and they give you another one,
Yeah.
and you just kind of keep going. And so
Brutal,
I got to
probably.
the Yeah, there are. I mean, these CrossFit workouts. Like. I'm sure you've heard about CrossFit. It is
Yeah,
definitely as intense as probably people think it is. But you can do it right if you do it the right way. Like for me, I started from the bottom and really worked. I didn't really try to beat everyone. It was always about, am I getting better than I am
yeah,
tomorrow? It's like, am I better than I was yesterday? And I just keep doing that every day, for everything that I was doing, whether it was martial arts um, or CrossFit or writing. Am I doing something today to be better tomorrow? And so, yeah, then next thing I knew, I was the 10th fittest
so
cop in
cool.
the world. And I know it sounds like it
Sick.
just happened, but it didn't. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot of work and a lot of sacrifices. I think, um, you guys talk about characters that are loners, and like how
Mhm.
that's not healthy. I very much experienced that firsthand. I thought it was cool. Like I would watch those characters, and so like that's what I wanted to be. And so when I'm a 21-year-old guy out there who's a police officer already, I was very much like shunning any chance of having a family. I was like, nope, I'm dedicated, like training and work, and that was all I did for probably 7 or 8 years until I met my wife, and then she convinced me otherwise, thankfully. And yeah, but it was definitely I learned a lot though in that time too. So
There's so
yeah.
much gold in what you just said for so many. Like, I just imagine the young man coming across this interview. There's so much importance in there of what you said. Like, having a mission and a focus, is so important for men, and having that dedication. And you talked about wanting to be better for yourself and being better than yourself rather than the ego lifting, especially in the gym. Like,
Mhm.
that hurts a lot of people, and it defeats a lot of people kind of will to work out when it's just like you're doing it for the wrong reasons, or you're not, you know, making it a you versus you thing. There's so much kind of speed run through your answer that was the 5 to 10 years of me learning how to grow out of adolescence and kind of the immaturity phase of
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a so go back if you're a young man, go back and re-listen to what he just said in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Like, that's really important stuff for growing into your own as a man. That is spot on.
Yeah.
So thank you
And
for your
you're
answer.
Yeah.
another
Honestly,
No,
I
thank you.
loved.
Thank you.
prime example of, we talked about this before. I think we talked about it with Ryan Pote, because it was a Louis L'Amour quote where they're like, yeah, he's 6'1" and 215 pounds. Louis L'Amour is, so like he's the guy that he's writing about. Like he's the stud in the books, dude. And you're the same way, freaking beast, dude. Your books. Every time I'm reading a book about you, I'm picturing you as the guy playing the role because you're a monster, dude. So very cool to see someone who's like
Yeah,
writing
definitely.
Well, thank you.
idealized characters, but also is the idealized character. So hell yeah, dude. Keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I like to think the characters I write are better than me. I think they're like what I hoped I become. Like how characters inspired me all those years, and still today, I want my characters to do that for not only me but
Right,
the people
right.
that read about it. Like, hey, it's obtainable. It's right there. I can be this guy. I can do this, and not only that, it's like learn from them and yeah, no, it was like I said, I think that definitely helped my writing, learning all those things and just whether it was writing a fight scene that's as authentic as I can make it or
Right.
the emotional beats of a story. I think you being in law enforcement, guys, like, I mean, yeah, I don't it's a very emotional job. It's a wave, and you meet these people. Being a detective now, I meet these kids that are in just horrible circumstances, and but then you also connect in these beautiful ways with them. And I think having that connected into my writing, I think not only, like I said, it just gives my writing, I guess, a more of that authentic feel that I'm just striving for every time I publish a book or write anything. And so I think without that, I don't know how good my writing would have been. I really don't. I think that I got lucky. I was blessed to be around some of the best human beings that this world has to offer, and some of the worst. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
even the people that were really bad, that I've had to deal with because of the job, I learned things, and that was infused in my writing as well. And so, yeah, I think that going out and experience, I think that's one thing I wanted to say too, is like you guys really like demonstrate that way. You guys want to go out and adventure and write about it and do it. Not only just write about it, you guys really like that's what drew me to your guys' podcast is I was like listening to it one day and I was like, man, these guys just get it. Like they want to get out and do these things. They, and it's not only fun and just like what we should do as men, but it's just like it's also therapeutic and cathartic for us. It's
Mm-hmm.
like what we need to do to be healthy individuals in our life, and that's really inspiring. I'm sorry, it's very inspiring what you guys are doing. It like I said, I even me back in the day, I was like moving to this detective role, and when you're on patrol, uh, like uniformed officers and stuff, they usually get most of the action. Like it's not like the movies. The detectives don't really get a ton of action. I mean, you do a lot more mental and interviews. You know, you write search warrants, but it's less about like car chases and all the exciting stuff. And so when I transitioned to this job, I started listening to one of your guys' podcasts, and you guys said something about like a man's got to be a man, and like I think Nathaniel mentioned like how he used to drive by this dog, and this dog was like in this cage, and he wants to be out. And I actually was like,
Yeah.
I felt that, like I was like, yeah, I'm feeling that right now. How do I fix that? And so I actually started going on hikes more and doing all these things because of that.
That's
So
awesome.
like I said,
Hell
it
yeah,
goes both
dude.
ways, gentlemen. You guys are inspiration. So
We
yeah,
love to hear that because I remember
yeah,
Nathaniel when you sent me that he was working and sent me that video of the dog, and we just both agree that that is like literally the world, like God painting a poem right in front of our faces of like, wow, that is exactly kind of what I feel when
Yeah.
I'm not going out and living how I'm supposed to be
yeah.
living.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. No, definitely. It was like you said that resonated very well with me. I was like, oh, that's and like I spent all these years adventuring, I get,
Yeah,
without really realizing it. But like something about when you said that, I was like, that's why I was like that for so long.
Yeah.
I never talked about it in my head because I was very like on my path and never cared to talk about it with anybody really. And when I was like, okay, that like, I don't know, that just opened such a big door. And so I was like, God, and then from then I was like going back and listening to all these podcasts from you guys. I was like, these are my people, dude. Like, I was like, I love
yeah,
these guys. So yeah, no, it's awesome stuff.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so
thank you
much. Yeah.
for the kind words.
Yeah. It is. It is so just. I mean, it's the reason why we're even here on the podcast, right? Because it's like the world is to a certain degree, it's not how we always thought it would be, right? I mean, you grow up like we were all talking about earlier. You grow up like reading these books, seeing these movies, and you're like, yeah, that's gonna be it. Like I'm gonna be doing that. And even you, like you're literally a police officer, doing the thing. And I'm sure that it's still, I'm sure that there's still like a lot of boring days. And I mean, you're a detective, which, like you said, is where people are always like, yeah, that's the thing. Like you get to be a detective, you're having all the adventures. So it's like cool to hear from you that you're over here doing it, like you're living the adventurous life, but you're still kind of feeling that, and it's still like there's more to this world than if we just kind of let it go by us, like we really got to make the
Mm,
moves and fight for the adventure and try and find the stuff, because it is like, I mean, you don't want to become stupid with it and be like, oh yeah, the more dangerous it gets, the better my life is. Like that's where you get into, I think it was
Yeah,
the G.K. Chesterton quote where it's like, then you just become a suicide because you're an idiot, basically. But it is like, man, if you
yeah.
can seek out danger and overcome it in a healthy way, it really does. It is like the answer to so many questions that you have. And I think that it's like questions that God has put in your life. Like, yeah, you were made to conquer. You were made to fight battles, not to just sit here and let life pass you by. But I mean, and that's what these stories do for us as well, right? Like I think Luke talked about it in another episode, like wargaming, I think was the phrase he used, where it's like
yeah,
you are able to like enter into these scenarios in these books and you see these crazy things, and it may be something that you never think of. I found that like in all of my life, the things that trip me up are the things that I've never thought about before. And I'm like, oh, this is something that could happen. And it might be about to happen, and I didn't even realize it until right now. Stuff like that. It's like, no, man, that's why you need to read more. You need to do more research. You need to like train different parts of your mind and your body to be ready for the things that you don't even know you need to be ready for. I think that that's like why men's adventure fiction is so good. Like my sense for
Yeah.
someone randomly kidnapping my wife or my kid is like on high alert, because I'm like, dude, that's what happened in Taken. Can't let a Taken scenario
yeah,
happen right now. I gotta lock in here.
Yeah.
This is not happening.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like the benefit of these stories, because it is. I mean, people say like, oh yeah, anything that's like not super thought provoking or super highbrow can't be good, you know. But like, and this is what's cool
Mhm.
too is we've come to this time in this like genre where we are able to. It doesn't have to be just popcorn entertainment, you know. Like this is real
Mhm.
stuff. This is like super thought provoking, super heavy hitting stuff that also is ultra entertaining. You know, you can have both worlds, so it's super exciting to be here on the podcast with you fellas and to be a writer and most importantly a reader getting to read the content that's being dropped. So good, such good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are crushing it over there at Veritas. Like I started since I joined the Discord with you guys, I was like seeing all these books that you guys are. I was like, man, where have these been my whole life? And so I just started like, I've been on a binge, man. I've been just binging. I've been binge Vipers. I thought I binged Treasures My Trade. And I started
Yeah,
binging a
dude.
few others. I was like, man, these are awesome. Yeah, it's just great. I was like, it's just quality storytelling too. And I was like, man, I'm so glad that I got on this Discord because it's just some great storytelling, really passionate, and I just love it. It's awesome. It's a great community you guys have built.
I thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate
Yeah.
everything you've spoke about it with the genre and kind of your connections to it, because I think that's another thing that I love about just this generation's authors and what kind of opportunities we have as readers is to get these insights. It's like a lot of times people
Yeah.
dismiss the Louis L'Amours of the world or the action storytellers, and they're like, if they don't read it, they're just, oh, that's an action story, like that's genre fiction.
Oh.
And until you look, like these types of interviews where you can kind of get into the heart of the writer and see that this means something to you. Like there's so much more here in experience and in philosophy and in psychology and like what you want to say with this than just, oh, it's a cool action scene, here it is, that's all I really wanted to write. No, there's so much more to it, and there's so much more to this genre than
Mhm.
just the action. So i love I love this modern era, for this like particular. I'm typically nihilistic with modern era, but this particular portion of the modern era, I love that we have this connection with authors, and I can
Mhm.
Yeah.
speak to someone like you and get more into your mindset with writing, because I say it all the time, I'm a writer's reader. I love to know as much about the author as the story they're telling. As a psychologist, like as a counselor myself, like I love kind of like connecting the mind of the author with the words they're writing. It's
Yeah.
awesome, and I think it also heightens kind of what readers get to experience in this modern age. So I appreciate you giving your time. We've already passed an hour with you. Like, thank you for giving
Yeah.
us time to do this and have this conversation with us, because it means a lot.
Oh yeah, it was my pleasure. You guys are, I could do this forever. You guys are easy to talk to. So yeah, no, it's really awesome. The stuff, like I said, it's we talked about we did bash a little on the modern age, but yeah, it's also like the modern age gives us these opportunities, and yeah, I'm very grateful, very grateful for it, guys. So thank you again for having me on. This has been really good,
And
really good.
you're not quite off the hook yet, because we have to ask the super hard questions we always ask.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
ask quick, keep firing.
It's gonna be your favorite character of all time, whether it's in a book or a TV show or a movie. And
Oh,
then Nathaniel, I always trip up the second question. Is it favorite book of all time, or is it favorite
Yeah,
story?
yeah. Favorite
All
book
right,
of all time.
favorite book, and then favorite
favorite book.
character across any media.
Okay. Well, that's actually easy because they're in the same series. But so John Corey is my favorite character of all time. He's written by Nelson DeMille. I don't know if you guys are
Yeah,
familiar
I
with
know
him.
Nelson DeMille.
And one of my favorite books was The Lion's Game. Was with John Corey, and it was a very hunter versus hunted storyline where
Oh,
John
very
Corey is
cool.
an FBI agent trying to track down this dangerous terrorist, and it's a very cat and mouse S story, and you have just hilarious first person narration with John Corey, and then you go back to the guy he's hunting, the terrorist, and he's methodical, and they're just two sides of the coin, but they definitely like have this kind of Pacino, De Niro
Yeah.
thing and heat where it's like they definitely reflect each other a little bit,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and that story always resonates. It's a long read, don't get me wrong, but I just remembered being like I read that book so fast for it being so big, and then I was hooked on Nelson DeMille books. Like he read, I don't know if you guys have read Upcountry, but he wrote that one. That was like a Vietnam story where a Vietnam guy goes back to Vietnam in the 90s and gets kind of tangled up in a political scheme. But Nelson DeMille, he writes really like funny first person narration stories
That
where
sounds awesome.
his protagonists are not like I don't know what you would say inspiring, but they're just like funny
Yeah.
and like complex. And, like they're very like John Corey's very complex. And I actually, you brought up Chris Pine. I was like always thought Chris Pine would be perfect as John Corey because
Nice.
Nice.
he possesses that like charm while saying something that might not be polite, but he's saying
Yeah.
it with his like smile. And I'm like, that's what I picture where I'm like, God, he would be so perfect for that character.
That's funny.
But yeah, those are my two. That's my favorite characters. So
Heck yeah.
yeah,
Did Nelson DeMille write Charm School, or am I thinking of somebody else?
I think he did. I have not read that one, but I'm pretty sure he did write that one.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's he's pretty prolific. I think he's written a lot of like stellar spy books and
yeah.
kind of like cat and mouse, like you were saying. It reminds me too. Have you ever seen or read The Day of the Jackal? Because I've just started that, and what you were describing kind of felt like it would go
No,
with
I've
that.
heard of that. I've not read that one
Yeah.
though. But yeah, no, Nelson DeMille's another one that was a guy that went to Vietnam, lived it,
Yeah.
experienced it, came back and started writing fiction and like really
Wild.
infused that kind of history into his characters. And yeah, Nelson DeMille, like reading about what he went through, it's like, holy cow, this guy, he's seen some stuff. And then like seeing how his characters internalize, things, whether it's trauma or something humorous or something, it's like very relatable and like you're sitting there like okay and again like it's important to me. I like to see into the author, I guess, his
Yeah.
soul a little bit, and it's like almost a window into that, and that's interesting to see. And he did it so flawlessly where it was just kind of just effortlessly put in there. It didn't seem like he was trying to have a message with
Right.
what he's gone through. It was just like, oh yeah, this is just kind of how those type of men are. And so yeah, John Corey, his character, that character is very he's like very much a man's man, and then like he'll be mean to somebody and then he'll feel bad about being mean to that guy, so he's got to go help that, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he's very interesting in that way, kind of like Clint Eastwood-esque in a way too.
Nice.
But yeah, no, definitely worth a read if you haven't checked it out.
Awesome. You
Yeah,
mentioned Clint Eastwood, and go ahead, Nathaniel. Mine's gonna be a
I'm a
different
huge
question. I don't want to
fan.
take us off yet.
Huge
Yeah,
fan of humorous first person narrative. So he's jumped to the top of my list. I'm definitely gonna check him out.
Yeah, as
yeah,
he was
yeah, me too.
describing it, it reminded me of Chester Drum, which you like a lot, that kind of
Yep, yep,
thing,
yep.
where just hanging out with the
Dude,
character.
yeah, that first person narration can really make like a boring scene even entertaining because of their first
Yeah, for
person
sure.
thoughts, or like somebody's talking to them. That I wanted to do that with my western, but again with the dialogue and things like that, I was like, I think I'm gonna go third person because it was just easier to translate what the
Right,
messages
right.
were for each page. So I actually went third person on that one. But my first book, I went first person with my main character, and then third person with the guy he's investigating.
Nice.
And then
Very cool.
so I kind of jumped between first and third persons, and that I got from Nelson DeMille, was that he did that, and I was like, oh yeah, you don't have to just pick one, you
Right.
can go on both. So that's what I did with my first book, and definitely learned a lot from him as an author.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
My
super cool.
Yeah,
question was about cut them down. I know some authors don't do this, and they're like, no, I don't have an answer. But do you have like in your head a dream cast of who you'd want to play your main character?
yeah. Yeah, I actually did with this one.
Awesome.
I didn't with my other two books. I kind of didn't really think of it. I just wrote it out.
Hmm.
But this one, there's Deputy Jake Reeves and then Sheriff Everett Wallace. And Jake Reeves definitely kind of for me felt like a Punisher John Berthnall a little bit,
Nice.
where he's like a hardened
Hell
Civil War
yeah.
vet, and he's definitely looking for the fight a little bit. And I felt like he would be a really good fit for that character. And then the sheriff, Everett, is not, I mean, he's a badass in his own right, but he's definitely not looking for the fight at this point in his life. He's
Yeah.
ready to like, he's kind of an alcoholic. He's kind of bumbling sheriff. Then his buddy kind of keeps him afloat. Uh, I would say like maybe a Chris Pratt, or Jensen Ackles. I don't know if you know, he was
Yeah.
in the Supernatural.
Uh-huh.
Because they
Yeah.
have this way of where they have this boyish charm where they could do something unforgivable, but you still love them. They have the complexities on, like they're so good at acting that they're just lovable, and
Yeah.
even if you're mad at them, you still love them. And I would need that for someone like Everett, because where I take his character in the story, he's my most complex character. Him and Marie, I'd say they're my most complex characters in the book,
Yeah, they're great
and they
characters.
definitely have a yeah, those two characters have a very high upward trajectory where they start. one way, and they have the most change from the beginning
Yeah,
to end. So yeah, no, actually, yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of the female characters in my book. They actually took a life of their own. Nate knows because
Yeah.
he read it, but one in particular circumstances really put her in a boat of like I need to step up or like, and she kind of just turned into a total badass, and I was like,
yeah,
this is awesome. And it was very authentic, and that was actually not the way I used her was definitely in the plan, but she actually took more of a life of her own and ended up being probably one her other than Everett was my favorite. She was one of my favorite characters to write, and my wife helped me writing that character because I wanted to get that the female character dialed in right. And
yeah,
it's a hard thing, being a male writing
for sure.
really like prominent female
Right.
characters. I'm like, okay. And so with my wife, I was straight up like, hey, like as a woman, does this make sense? I know it's 200 years ago, but like I need to make sure I don't want my female readers because usually a high percentage of readers are female, and I'm like, I want them to connect with her, and so that character ended up being, like I said, it was really interesting how when you're writing a story, as you two probably know, and a character that you didn't quite expect to just steal the show. And I felt that way about Marie's character. She really, by the end of it, you're like, oh, she was almost like might be the main character of the whole thing. And by the way it ends, it doesn't start out that way, but the way it ends, you're kind of like, oh wow, she was super pivotal in this whole thing. And so I really was, anyways. I'm ranting again about it, but
That's
yeah, that
great.
was a proud moment for me.
No, it's
They
a
should take the
great
book,
book to
Yeah.
turn it
be.
around, dude.
Yeah, great book to be ranting about, and it seems like people are loving it. I mean, it's just garnering reviews left and right on Amazon. So you definitely did some great work, and I think this is another prime example. It's men's adventure fiction, the genre, but it has some of the greatest female characters of all time. We were just talking about that in the Discord earlier today. It's like, man, to you don't like there's two ways it can go. You can either put them into very much like a box, or they can just be like the coolest character of all time, totally outside the box, doing things that are really true to life. And I think it really just depends on who the author is
Hmm.
and how much they like the type of women that they have in their life. So you did a really great job. She was a great character,
Thank you.
and the book just sings. So
Yeah.
great work, great work. I
Yeah.
wanted to
Thank
ask
you.
you.
Yeah. I mean, oh, sorry. Good.
No, you can go ahead. Mine's going to be a little off topic, so take it away.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say I with a title like Cut Them Down, it's like I think every guy is probably like right on, like that sounds full of male testosterone, which there's
Yeah,
plenty of
yeah,
that
yeah.
too. But I was like I also was like it was important to be like, okay, it's not just gonna be like Stallone Expendables
Mhm.
Western, like I was like there needed to be an ebb and flow to it. And so anyways, I wanted to have the again the both the balance of both worlds. So yeah, anyways, what were you gonna say, Nate?
Um, to this can be a chance for you to tell us where you're at on social media and everything, but I wanted you to tell us a little bit about TG Brown Publications, is what it's called, right?
Yeah, so that's my wife and I run our own publication. I'm an independent
So
author,
cool,
and
so cool.
we actually, yeah, so she actually sells books directly at our website, www.tgbrownbooks.com. We sell the audio. We're actually one of the only people that we sell the audiobook, digital, and paperback. We sell all three. The paperbacks, we sign them, we make them out to people if they want us to make them out to them. So we personalize them to the people if they want. And yeah, so she is honestly, I joke that she's the CEO because there's only two of us, but she really is like, she runs, like, she has a marketing scheme. And so we really, we have a plan every time now that this is our third book. First couple times we kind of bumped through it, and luckily had a lot of people support us and get us through those because we were still learning. By the third one, we really had a plan of like, okay, how are we going to attack this? How are we going to use the resources that we have? And yeah, so like I said, it's a two-person shop between her and I, and like I said, we sell a lot of the books directly to our readers that have known us for a while, and then we take that profit and we turn it, and we actually have learned more about like Amazon advertisements and how to get that to get the word out there, because as you guys know, when you sell on Amazon, everybody's got to get a cut, and so like you don't necessarily get the profit as much. So what we do is we sell it cheaper on our website, um, and then we don't have it. We just cut out the middleman. And then what we do is we sell it cheaper. We give, like I said, it's signed, so technically to me a little bit better product, and then we use that what we get from that to extend to other readers on Amazon. And then what else that she does is that we really focus on the audience that we want. So we try to dial
Yeah.
in what audiences are going to like this. Um, with my Western being more gritty and stuff, we didn't want to target people that maybe like the more clean cut Westerns, right? It was like, okay, we want maybe the neo Western crowd and those type Yellowstone
Right.
fans and
Right.
stuff like
Right.
that. Um, so yeah, no, it's a whole thing, and it's really her. She really is the one that talked to me, and really it was like, hey, she studied it day and night, still does, finding new ways to get the word out there because you guys know how hard it is. You really just trying to get the word out there. Like we save a lot of money to do these things and test things out. She took this class to learn about advertisements and how to effectively use them because I think that's super important for independent authors. It's like we can get the system to work for us if we understand it, and it's super hard to understand it because they purposefully try to keep that from us. And so what we hope to do. Our publication is one day help other authors like we want to master it so then we can help other authors like when they publish their first book like hey this is what you have to do, this is the marketing plan, and help market their books, whether they want to go through our publication or just open up their own publication and go. And then we also have a consultant. Her name Edits by Stacy is her company, and she helped us get it started. So she was like an advisor of like this is what we need to do,
Yeah.
and whatnot. And so what we did is that what I did when I was going through all those years of working, I was putting aside a lot of money and doing my own research of how I need to get this done. Because I was like, okay, if I self-publish, how do I do this? If do I try to get signed on at a publishing house? And ultimately, this is what we came up with: was this is the most effective way to get our message out to a lot of readers, and also kind of cool if we can figure out a way to help other authors like us three and the people listening, because like I said, I've read a lot of good books from independent authors where I'm like, these are blowing me away. Like these deserve more attention than they're getting. And so if we can figure that out, that's one of our top missions right now. And
Cool.
yeah, so I guess that's us in a nutshell. We haven't mastered it yet, and we're hoping to. Like I said, with each book, we're learning more. The ebbs and flow of the business changes, and so that's been difficult. But her and I put our heads together, and they say you shouldn't go to business with your wife, but it's definitely been awesome for us, thankfully.
I love it.
Like I said, it helps that she's a mental health clinician, and she knows her stuff of like healthy
Yeah,
relationships.
that's
She's a
really
marriage
nice.
and family counselor. So I tend to listen. Like if something like if she has something to say, I'm like, okay, if I better listen to her because she's the most intelligent person I know. I lucked out in that she took a chance with a guy like me. So yeah,
That's
That's so
awesome,
cool.
dude. I love that. I love
yeah,
this. And that's such a good, you know, giving back, like you were saying, to be able to do that. Because I'm with you. There's so many books that I've read from the independent kind of like circuit that are just incredible, and you wish they got the reviews and the attention they deserve. So, as you guys are doing the legwork and the hard work to figure out the advertising, it's really cool that you have the intention to give back and help. That shows where your heart's at. That's really awesome.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like what you guys are doing too at Veritas. You guys are giving a lot of opportunities with these, like like whether it's the film festival or these book awards that you guys are doing and stuff like that. It's really exciting to see. And again, another thing that kind of drew me to want to chat with you guys because I was like, these guys are on the same, like you
Yeah.
guys are very like altruistic. I don't know, is that the right word? Like very like genuine in your guys' like message and what you guys want to do with writing and storytelling and things like that. So the prospect's very exciting, and I think that between us three and everybody else out there trying to make it, we'll figure something out one day.
Heck yeah.
So
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
we
This is like the perfect opportunity for it's tough because since the world has become so big with the internet and access to all that, it's like now stuff can just get lost in the ocean of everybody's doing it, but it's also like the prime time where people
yeah,
are ready for the new entertainment, dude. So I think that it is to have platforms where we can be like, all right, let's highlight this, let's highlight this, let's show you guys how to make your content be seen. It's just so exciting, and I think it really does just bode well for the future of the entertainment industry. So good work on you guys with your
Yeah.
publishing company.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, like I read books like your guys' books and the other people that I've met on the Discord, and I'm like, these authors are hungry to provide great stories. And I don't want to say that some of the more known authors aren't as hungry. I mean, some of them are for sure. Like I said, how am I to say if they are or not? Because some of them are really great. But I would say that like there's something about an independent author that's just doing it for the passion, for the love. Like, just like that to me
Yeah.
is like, that's what produces the best of this genre. And so that was ultimately why we want to do it. And probably similar, hopefully, I think with you guys, or I don't know what you guys think about it, but that's kind of what drew us to it, because we're like, yeah, we want more of that in our lives. Not only just because it's like it makes us feel good, but it's also like we want to hear these stories. We want to read these stories because we get to enjoy them. We get to reap the benefits of these awesome stories
Yeah,
too.
for sure.
And I just think, yeah, good work should be celebrated. So
Heck yeah. So, guys, if this conversation hasn't led you to buy this book already, go check out the live action.
What are you doing?
That'll seal the deal. There's an awesome live action trailer you put together for this that will absolutely
Yeah.
get them to hit by now as well.
I think we're actually going to drop it at the beginning of this episode. So hopefully,
Perfect. You guys are already.
if you were,
I don't even know what I'm doing.
if you were listening to it on Spotify, jump over to the YouTube and watch the first like 30, 40 seconds. It is awesome. And this is another thing that you guys killed it with. Live action trailers, dude. You got to make them. It's so much fun. It really just like, there's nothing quite like an exact flavor of what the book's going to be about. And that trailer kills it.
yeah.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that it's like creating that cinematic feel
Right.
to a book, and I think that's really cool because then you have that visual. I definitely, watching your book trailer, Nate, for your book and Vipers, I instantly went and bought it because I was like, it already, like, I've rewatched the trailer like 6 times. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, and then as you read the scenes happening, it's even cooler. And like Jack Carr also, he's another one that I think does it really well, where he recreates a scene in a trailer and then you read about it, and it just adds that extra flavor and again that cinematic flair that I think is really cool, to get that feeling that you'd get in a movie theater but in a book. Like, I think that's a really cool thing to do. So yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation that we cannot let be the only one, but I know you've got places to be, some fun things to get to, so we'll let you get
right,
going.
because
Thank you so
today
much.
is your birthday. So happy birthday, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending a big chunk of it with us. But too good.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
All right, my friend.
Thank
Take
you.
care, and guys, go pick up, cut them down, and say happy birthday to TJ Brown in the comments. TJ Brown.
Thank you.
TJ Brown. I ruined it right at the end. TJ Brown.
It's fine. You're good.
All right, guys. See you next time.
See you next time. You just don't want to do this.
Why is that, Butch?
He is one mean hombre.
Lickety split with those 6 guys in this.
Those banditos won't get that man.
No one robs my train on my watch.
Take this. Find this.